She didn't know I was standing behind the door. Didn't know I heard every word. I wish he wasn't my dad. My life would be so much better. She laughed when she said it. Her friends laughed too. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It went quiet. Because I realized something most parents never admit. Love means nothing if there's no respect. So I made a decision that night. I gave her exactly what she wanted. I stopped being her father. Completely. And 6 months later, she showed up at my door, begging me to take it back. Daniel Brooks had never thought of himself as the kind of man people noticed. He wasn't loud. He didn't wear expensive suits. He didn't walk into rooms expecting attention. At 58, he had spent most of his life doing the kind of work that left your hands rough and your back permanently stiff. Remodeling kitchens, fixing roofs, rewiring old houses that no one else wanted to touch. The kind of work that built things. The kind of work no one clapped for. That night, he stood alone in the narrow hallway outside his daughter's apartment, holding a small paper bag with her favorite takeout, pad thai, extra peanuts, just the way she used to like it when she was a kid. He hadn't told her he was coming. He figured it would be a nice surprise. Inside, music hummed softly. Laughter spilled through the slightly cracked door. Young voices, carefree, effortless. The kind of laughter that didn't know anything about bills or responsibility or what it meant to wake up at 5 a.m. to make sure someone else had a better life. Daniel paused, not because he meant to listen, but because he heard her voice. Emily, his daughter. Clear, bright, confident. So different from the little girl who used to run into his arms after school, holding up crayon drawings like they were priceless masterpieces. He smiled at first. Then he heard what she said. I just wish he wasn't my dad. The words landed like something heavy and cold. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. There was a beat of silence. And then her friends laughed. Not politely, not awkwardly. They laughed like it was funny, like it was obvious, like it made sense. Daniel didn't move. Inside, Emily kept talking, her voice lighter now, almost playful. Seriously, you guys don't get it. He's so embarrassing. Always in those work boots, always smelling like paint or something. Like, my boss met him once and I literally wanted to disappear. More laughter. Someone said something he couldn't quite make out. Emily responded quickly. No, I mean it. My life would be so much easier if he just wasn't in it like that. Daniel stared at the door. The paper bag in his hand crinkled slightly as his grip tightened. For a second, something sharp rose in his chest. Anger, maybe. Or hurt. Or both tangled together so tightly they felt the same. But it didn't explode. It didn't even show. Instead, it faded. Like someone flipped a switch. The noise in his head, every memory, every sacrifice, every long night, just went quiet. He thought about the overtime shifts. The winters spent on ladders with numb fingers. The summers where the heat soaked through his clothes before noon. He thought about the tuition payments. The rent checks. The way he never questioned a single dollar if it meant she could have more. A better life. A cleaner one. A life where she'd never have to smell like paint. Inside the apartment, the music got louder. Someone popped open a drink. Emily laughed again. Carefree, untouched, completely unaware. Daniel looked down at the bag in his hand. The food was still warm. He could feel the heat through the thin paper. For a moment, he imagined opening the door, stepping inside, everyone turning to look at him, the father in worn jeans and scuffed boots. Emily's face tightening. That flash of embarrassment she thought he never noticed. He had always noticed. He just chose to ignore it. Because he thought love meant endurance. Because he thought if he kept showing up, kept providing, kept being steady, eventually, she'd see him. Eventually, she'd understand. But standing there now, listening to her laugh at the idea of him not being her father, he realized something simple and devastating. She already saw him, and she had decided exactly what he was worth. Daniel took a slow breath. Then another. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and old carpet. Somewhere down the corridor, a door slammed. Life went on. Inside, Emily was still talking. But he didn't listen anymore. He stepped back from the door quietly, careful not to make a sound. The floor creaked under his weight, but the music covered it. No one noticed. No one ever did. He walked down the hallway, each step steady, measured, not rushed, not angry, just certain. By the time he reached the stairs, the warmth from the takeout had already started to fade. He paused at the landing and looked down at the bag one last time. Then he set it gently on the railing, left it there, turned around. and walked away. That was the moment Daniel Brooks stopped trying to be a father his daughter didn't want and started becoming something else entirely. Not louder, not colder, just gone. The next morning, Daniel woke up at 5:12 a.m. Not because he had to, but because his body didn't know how to do anything else. For 35 years, that had been his routine. Up before the sun, coffee black and strong, boots on by 5:30, out the door before the world even decided what kind of day it was going to be. Today, there was no job waiting, no client expecting him, no urgent call about a broken pipe or a flickering panel. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels unfamiliar at first, like stepping into a house you used to live in, but something's off. Something's missing. He sat at the edge of his bed for a long moment, hands resting on his knees, staring at the floor. The words from last night didn't replay in his head. That was the strange part. They didn't echo. They didn't stab. They just existed. Settled. Final. Daniel stood up, walked into the kitchen, and poured himself a cup of coffee. The mug was chipped along the rim. Emily had dropped it years ago when she was 12, and he'd kept using it anyway. Back then, she cried like it was the end of the world. Now, he wasn't sure she'd even remember it. He took a sip. Still hot. Still bitter. Still real. The house was small. Quiet. Everything in it had a purpose. Nothing was decorative unless it meant something. A framed photo sat on the counter near the sink. Emily at 8 years old, missing her front tooth, holding up a science project made out of cardboard and glue. He had stayed up all night helping her build it. She had won first place. She hugged him so tight that day he could barely breathe. "You're the best dad ever." Daniel looked at the photo for a few seconds. Then he turned it face down. Not out of anger. Just practicality. He walked over to the small desk in the corner of the living room and sat down. The chair creaked under his weight. The laptop took a moment to boot up. Old. Slow. Reliable. Just like everything else in his life. He opened his bank account. Numbers filled the screen. Savings. Investments. Accounts he had built slowly, patiently, over decades. Every dollar had a story. Every dollar had cost something. Most of them had one purpose. Emily. Her education. Her apartment. Her future. Daniel leaned back slightly, staring at the total balance. For years, that number had represented security. Not for him. For her. He clicked into one of the accounts. Her account. The one he had set up when she was born. He remembered sitting in that bank office, holding her in one arm while signing papers with the other. The banker had smiled and said, "You're setting her up for a great life." Daniel had believed that. Still wanted to believe it. But belief and reality were two different things. He hovered his cursor over the transfer option. His hand didn't shake. His chest didn't tighten. There was no dramatic hesitation. Just a quiet, steady understanding. She didn't want what he represented. And everything in this account came from exactly that. He exhaled slowly, then clicked. One by one, he began moving the money. Out of her name. Out of her access. Into accounts she couldn't touch. Not stolen. Not hidden. Just reclaimed. It took less than 10 minutes. Years of sacrifice. Moved in silence. When it was done, the screen looked almost empty where her name used to be. Daniel stared at it for a moment. Then closed the laptop. No ceremony. No speech. Just a decision completed. He stood up, walked to the kitchen, and grabbed a small notepad from the drawer. The paper was slightly yellowed. He clicked a pen, paused, then wrote, slowly and clearly. "You said you wanted a life without me in it. I'm giving that to you, Dad." He tore the page out cleanly, folded it once, set it on the counter. For a second, he just stood there, looking at it. That word at the bottom. Dad. He almost crossed it out. Almost. But didn't. Instead, he placed his keys beside the note. Then grabbed his jacket. The same old canvas one, worn at the elbows. Still warm. Still his. As he stepped outside, the morning air hit him. Cool, sharp, honest. She stood outside her office building, phone pressed to her ear, listening to automated messages loop over and over again. "Your account is currently unavailable. Please contact your financial institution." She hung up, exhaled sharply, and dialed again. Same result. Her stomach tightened slightly. Still manageable. Still fixable. She told herself that. Inside, her coworkers talked about weekend plans and upcoming deadlines. Emily sat at her desk, refreshing her banking app again and again. The numbers weren't wrong. They were just gone. Not negative. Not frozen. Just empty. Every account tied to her name. Cleared. A cold feeling began to spread through her chest. Not panic. Not yet. Just confusion. That afternoon, she tried to pay her rent. The payment failed instantly. She stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. That wasn't supposed to happen. Her rent had always been covered. Automatically. She didn't even think about it. Because she never had to. By the time she got home, the note was waiting for her. Folded neatly. Sitting on the kitchen counter. Next to a set of keys she didn't recognize. For a second, she just stood there, staring at it. Something about the way it was placed. Too intentional. Too calm. She walked over slowly and picked it up. Unfolded it. Her eyes scanned the words once. Then again. You said you wanted a life without me in it. I'm giving that to you. Dad. The room felt different. Quieter. Like the air had shifted. Emily let out a short, disbelieving laugh. What is this? She said it out loud, like someone else might answer. This is ridiculous. She grabbed her phone and dialed his number. Straight to voicemail. She hung up. Tried again. Voicemail. Her jaw tightened. Seriously? She paced across the apartment, running a hand through her hair. Is this some kind of joke? Another call. Voicemail. The irritation came first. Not fear. Not guilt. Just anger. She opened her banking app again, tapping aggressively. Nothing. She checked her email. No warning. No explanation. Nothing. Her chest rose and fell faster now. Okay, fine. She muttered. Fine. If this was his way of trying to control her, it wasn't going to work. She wasn't a kid anymore. She didn't need him. She had a job. She had connections. She had a life. A better one, right? She grabbed her laptop, logging into her work account, pulling up contacts. People she could call. People who mattered. Her boss. Her coworkers. Friends from school. People who lived in her world. Not his. She hesitated for a second, then shook it off. This was nothing. Just a temporary inconvenience. A glitch. A misunderstanding. She'd fix it. She always did. But as the sun started to set, casting long shadows across her apartment, that quiet feeling crept back in. The one she couldn't explain. The one that sat just beneath the surface. Because for the first time in her life, something fundamental had changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But completely. The safety net she never saw had disappeared. And she didn't know how far she was about to fall. By the second day, the irritation was gone. Replaced by something else. Something quieter. Heavier. Emily sat at her kitchen counter, staring at her laptop screen, refreshing her email for what felt like the 100th time. Still nothing from the bank. No explanation. No reversal. No sorry for the inconvenience. Just silence. The kind that doesn't fix itself. Her phone buzzed. A notification from her building management. Reminder, rent payment failed. Please resolve within 48 hours to avoid penalties. Her stomach dropped. That hadn't happened before. Not once. She clicked the message, reread it, then closed it like maybe ignoring it would make it less real. It didn't. She picked up her phone again and scrolled to his name. Dad. Her thumb hovered over it. She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to call, but because something about it felt different now. Like dialing that number meant admitting something she wasn't ready to admit. Still, she pressed it. Ring. Ring. Voicemail. She didn't hang up this time. She waited for the beep. Then, nothing. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. What was she even supposed to say? Hey, can you turn my life back on? She ended the call without leaving a message. Okay, she muttered to herself, pushing her chair back. Fine, I'll fix it. She grabbed her bag and headed out. If money wasn't working digitally, she'd figure it out the old way. Cash advances. Short-term credit. Something. There were always options. There had to be. The bank was colder than she expected. Bright lights. Clean floors. Smiling employees behind polished counters. Everything looked stable. Structured. Controlled. The opposite of how she felt. She approached the desk, forcing a calm expression. Hi. I just need to check something with my account. There's probably a mistake. The teller nodded politely, typing in her information. A few seconds passed. Then her expression changed. Subtle, but noticeable. Miss Brooks, it looks like the primary account holder removed access yesterday. Emily blinked. What? The accounts you were using were not in your name. You were listed as an authorized user. That didn't make sense. Okay, but I've been using those accounts for years. Yes, the teller said gently. But legally, they weren't yours. The words hit differently than anything else so far. Not yours. Emily felt a strange tightness in her chest. So what does that mean? It means the funds were transferred by the account owner. We can't reverse that. Transferred where? I'm sorry, I don't have access to that information. Emily stared at her. You're telling me I have $0? The teller hesitated, then nodded. In those accounts, yes. Emily walked out of the bank slower than she walked in. The world outside looked the same. Cars passed. People talked. Someone laughed across the street. But everything felt off. Like she had missed something important. Like everyone else knew something she didn't. She sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel. Her reflection stared back at her in the rearview mirror. Perfect hair. Carefully done makeup. Outfit chosen to impress. She looked put together. Successful. In control. But for the first time, it didn't match reality. Authorized user. She whispered it out loud. The phrase echoed in her mind. All those years. The apartment. The tuition. The lifestyle. None of it had actually been hers. It had been his. And he had just taken it back. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time from her credit card. Payment overdue. Account temporarily suspended. Her breath caught. No. 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 She opened the app quickly. The balance was still there. But the available credit? 0. Frozen. She tried to make a small test payment online. Declined. Her hands started to shake. Just slightly. But enough. This is insane. She whispered. This is actually insane. She leaned back in her seat, staring at the ceiling of the car. For the first time since reading the note, a thought slipped in. Uninvited. Uncomfortable. He actually did it. Not as a threat. Not as punishment. But as a decision. And suddenly, that line from the note felt heavier. I'm giving that to you. This wasn't about control. It wasn't about manipulation. He wasn't trying to scare her. He wasn't even arguing. He had simply stepped out. Completely. Emily sat there in silence, her fingers tightening around the steering wheel. A slow, unfamiliar feeling started to spread through her chest. Not anger. Not confusion. Something colder. Something deeper. For the first time in her life, there was no backup plan. No one quietly fixing things behind the scenes. No invisible safety net catching her before she hit the ground. Just her. And the consequences she didn't think were real. She swallowed hard, then reached for her phone again. Scrolled to his name. Paused. This time longer. Her pride pushed back. Her ego whispered. You don't need him. But something else. Something quieter. Asked a different question. Then why does everything feel like it's falling apart without him? She didn't call. Not yet. Instead, she started the car. Because right now, she still believed she could fix this on her own. She just didn't realize yet how fast things were about to get worse. Emily lasted 3 days before the cracks stopped being small. By then, they weren't cracks anymore. They were fractures. The first real hit came from her apartment. She walked into the leasing office with her usual confidence, shoulders back, voice steady, the kind of posture that said I belong here. I just need a little time, she told the manager, forcing a polite smile. There's been a banking issue. It'll be resolved in a few days. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Karen, didn't smile back. She folded her hands neatly on the desk. Emily, your rent is now 3 days overdue. And this isn't the first notice. Emily blinked. What do you mean? It's always been. She stopped herself. Always been what? Handled. Covered. Paid by someone else. Karen slid a paper across the desk. According to our records, the account linked to your lease has been inactive. There's no payment scheduled. Emily stared at the paper. The numbers suddenly looked bigger than they should. Colder. More real. I told you. Emily said quickly, a hint of sharpness creeping into her tone. It's just a delay. I have a job. I can pay it. Karen nodded slowly. Then we'll need payment by the end of the week. Otherwise, we'll begin the formal process. Formal process. Emily knew what that meant. Eviction. The word hung unspoken in the air. She walked out of the office with her jaw clenched, her heels hitting the floor harder than usual. This was temporary. Just pressure. Just a situation. She could handle it. That afternoon, she started making calls. First, her boss. Hey, I was wondering if there's any chance I could get an advance on my salary? Just temporarily. A pause on the other end. That's not really something we do, Emily. Is everything okay? Yeah, of course. Just a small timing issue. Another pause. I'm sorry. Company policy. Click. Next, a friend. Hey, could you spot me a couple thousand? Just for a week. I'll pay you back immediately. Silence. Then an awkward laugh. That's kind of a lot, Em. I've got my own stuff going on right now. Right? Yeah, of course. Click. Another call. Another excuse. Another not right now. Each one chipped away at something inside her. Not loudly, but steadily. By evening, her apartment felt different. It looked the same, clean, modern, stylish. But now she saw it differently. The couch, the glass table, the view from the window. None of it felt like hers anymore. It felt borrowed, temporary, fragile. She opened her fridge. Half empty. She hadn't grocery shopped in days. Why would she? She always ate out. Ordered in. Convenience was part of her lifestyle. Part of who she thought she was. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Final notice. Rent payment required immediately. Her chest tightened. This wasn't slowing down. It was accelerating. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the message. Her mind raced through options. More calls. More people. More ways to fix this. But every path led to the same place. Someone else. Someone with money. Someone willing to help. And there was only one person who had never said no. Not once. Her gaze drifted to her phone. To his name. Still there. Still untouched. Her pride flared up again. You don't need him. But the voice didn't sound as strong this time. Because now, this wasn't about pride anymore. It was about survival. Emily stood up suddenly, pacing across the room. This is ridiculous, she muttered. He's overreacting. That's all this is. He's trying to prove a point. Yes, that made sense. This was temporary. A lesson. A tactic. He'd step back in eventually. He always did. She grabbed her phone. Dialed. Ring. Ring. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Her chest rose faster now. Pick up, she whispered under her breath. Nothing. She ended the call and threw the phone onto the bed. Frustration surged through her. Not fear. Not yet. Just anger at the inconvenience. At the disruption. At him. How could he do this? She snapped to the empty room. All because of one comment. But even as she said it, something didn't sit right. Because deep down, she knew it wasn't just one comment. It was everything behind it. Every look. Every tone. Every moment, she made him feel smaller. She shook her head quickly, pushing the thought away. No, this wasn't on her. He was the one who walked away. He was the one who cut her off. He was the one being unreasonable. Right? She sat back down, pulling her knees up slightly, staring at the floor. The apartment felt quieter now. Too quiet. For the first time since this started, Emily felt something new creep in. Not panic. Not yet. But something close. Something uncomfortable. Uncertainty. Because no matter how many people she called, no matter how many excuses she made, no matter how many times she told herself she could fix it, the truth was starting to settle in. This wasn't a delay. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't something that would magically resolve. This was a life. Without him in it. And it was already falling apart. By the end of the week, Emily stopped pretending. There was no more temporary. No more just a delay. Reality had arrived, and it didn't care how she felt about it. It started with her job. She walked into the office that morning already exhausted, her mind racing from another night of barely sleeping. Her phone had become a source of stress instead of comfort. Every notification felt like bad news waiting to happen. She tried to act normal, tried to sit at her desk, open her laptop, and focus on work like everything wasn't slowly collapsing around her. But it didn't work. Her performance slipped. Small mistakes, missed details, things she normally handled easily suddenly felt overwhelming. By mid-morning, her boss called her into his office. Emily, is everything okay? She forced a smile. Yeah, just a little tired. He studied her for a moment. You've missed 2 deadlines this week. That's not like you. I'll fix it, she said quickly. I just need a little time. He nodded, but not convincingly. Take the rest of the day off. Get yourself together. It wasn't a suggestion. She left the office with her bag slung over her shoulder, walking faster than usual, her chest tight. This wasn't supposed to happen. Work was the one thing she still had control over. And now, even that felt unstable. By the time she got back to her apartment, there was another envelope waiting at her door. Not an email, not a notification. A physical letter. Heavy. Official. She picked it up slowly. Her name printed clearly on the front. She already knew what it was before opening it. But she opened it anyway. Her eyes scanned the page. Words like final notice, non-payment, and legal action stood out immediately. Her fingers tightened around the paper. She exhaled slowly. This wasn't pressure anymore. This was a countdown. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The apartment felt colder. Not physically, emotionally, like it no longer belonged to her, like she was just passing through. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't even want to look, but she did. Another message, this time from a friend. Hey, quick question. Did you actually mean what you said about your dad the other night? Emily froze. Her heart skipped. She stared at the message, her throat tightening. Another notification followed. A screenshot. Her own words. Clipped. Shared. Circulating. Her stomach dropped. No, 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 no. She tapped the message, reading it again. Her friend added, people are talking about it. Just thought you should know. Emily sank down onto the couch, the paper still in her hand. For a moment, everything overlapped. The rent, the bank, the job, and now, this. Her world wasn't just falling apart financially. It was cracking socially too. The same people who laughed that night were now watching, talking, judging. She opened her social media, scrolled. There it was. Subtle, but obvious. Comments, reactions, a shift in tone. People who used to engage with her posts, now silent, or worse, watching without responding. Her image, carefully built, curated, controlled, was slipping. She locked her phone and threw it onto the couch. Her breathing grew shallow. Faster. This is insane, she whispered. How is everything falling apart at once? But deep down, she knew the answer. Because everything had been connected. Her lifestyle, her confidence, her status, her independence. It all traced back to one thing, one person, and he was gone. She stood up suddenly, pacing across the room. Her thoughts were louder now, more chaotic, less controlled. This isn't fair, she muttered. He can't just disappear like this. But another voice cut through that thought. Quieter, sharper. You asked for this. She stopped walking. Her chest tightened again. That sentence, the one she said, the one she laughed about. I wish he wasn't my dad. It didn't sound funny anymore. It sounded final. Emily slowly sank back down onto the couch, staring at the floor. Her hands trembled slightly. For the first time since this began, she didn't feel angry. She didn't feel annoyed. She didn't even feel defensive. She felt something much worse. Alone. Because this wasn't just about money anymore, or rent, or reputation. This was about what happened when the one person who always stayed finally stopped. And the silence he left behind was louder than anything she had ever heard. The first time Emily skipped a meal, it didn't feel like a big deal. She told herself she wasn't hungry, that she was too busy, that it was temporary. By the third day, it was no longer a choice. She stood in front of her fridge, staring at what was left. Half a bottle of water, a takeout container she didn't remember ordering, and a single yogurt pushed to the back. That was it. No groceries, no delivery apps, no quick solutions, because everything required money, and money was gone. She grabbed the yogurt, peeled it open, and ate it standing there. No plate, no thought, just survival. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time, didn't even look, because she already knew what it would be. Another reminder, another problem, another piece of her life slipping. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out over the city. Everything still looked the same. People rushing to work, cars moving, lights flickering in distant buildings. The world hadn't changed. Only hers had. She leaned her forehead lightly against the glass. Cold, grounding, real. That's when the next realization hit her. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, like something rising from deep inside. No one was coming to fix this. Not her friends, not her job, not some last-minute opportunity. And definitely not him. Because for the first time in her life, he had actually meant it. Emily stepped back from the window, her chest tightening again. Her thoughts drifted, uninvited, to memories she hadn't touched in years. Small things, simple things. Her dad waiting in the car outside school, every single day, even when she said she could walk home. The way he used to pack her lunch when she had exams. Always the same note inside. You've got this. Proud of you. The nights he stayed up fixing things around the house after working all day, so she wouldn't have to live in something broken. She squeezed her eyes shut. Stop, she whispered. But the memories didn't stop. Because now, there was nothing distracting her from them. No noise. No comfort. No illusion. Just silence. And in that silence, the truth felt louder. She hadn't just pushed him away. She had erased him. And he had simply accepted it. Emily sank down onto the floor, her back against the wall, pulling her knees close. Her breathing slowed, but her chest felt heavier. This isn't what I meant, she whispered. Her voice cracked slightly. She didn't mean this. She didn't mean losing everything. She didn't mean being alone. She didn't mean him actually leaving. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she looked. Another message. From a friend. But the tone was different now. Short. Distant. Hey, I think I'm going to sit out this weekend. Just a lot going on. Emily stared at the screen. That wasn't an invitation. That was distance. She scrolled through her contacts. Names she used to call easily. People she laughed with. Spent time with. Felt connected to. But now, every name felt far away. Because those connections had been built on something fragile. Something she didn't fully understand until now. Convenience. Image. Status. And without those things, there was nothing holding them together. She locked her phone and let it drop beside her. The apartment felt bigger now. Too big. Too empty. For the first time, the thought crossed her mind clearly. I need him. Not as a backup. Not as a safety net. But as a person. And that realization scared her more than anything else so far. Because needing him meant admitting something she had been avoiding since that night. That she was wrong. That what she said wasn't just careless. It was cruel. And worse, it might have been too late to take back. Emily slowly stood up, her legs slightly unsteady. She walked over to the counter where the note still lay. Folded. Simple. Final. Her fingers brushed over the words again. I'm giving that to you. At the time, it felt like punishment, control, an overreaction. Now, it felt like something else entirely. A boundary. One she had never seen before. And didn't know how to cross. She picked up her phone again, scrolled to his name, paused. This time, her pride didn't speak. Her ego didn't argue. There was only one thought left. What if he doesn't answer? Her hand trembled slightly as she stared at the screen. Because for the first time, that possibility felt real. And if it was true, then this wasn't just a mistake. It was a loss. One she didn't know how to fix. Emily didn't call him that night. Not because she didn't want to, but because something inside her stopped her. It wasn't pride anymore. That had already cracked. It was fear. Real fear. The kind that doesn't come from losing money, but from realizing you might have lost someone for good. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was dark. Too quiet. Her thoughts filled every inch of it. She imagined the call. Him picking up. Or worse, not picking up. What would she even say? Hey Dad, I didn't mean it. It sounded weak. Too late. She turned onto her side, pulling the blanket tighter around her. Her stomach growled softly. She ignored it. Sleep didn't come easy. When it did, it wasn't peaceful. She dreamed of the hallway. The door. Her voice echoing back at her. I wish he wasn't my dad. But this time, there was no laughter. No music. Just silence. And him standing there, hearing everything. She woke up suddenly, her chest tight, breath uneven. The room was still dark. Her phone read 3:17 a.m. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she sat up slowly, running a hand through her hair. He heard it. She whispered. It wasn't a question anymore. It was the only thing that made sense. The timing, the note, the silence. He didn't just leave. He walked away after hearing exactly what she thought of him. Emily swung her legs over the side of the bed and sat there, staring at the floor. Her chest felt heavier now. Not from stress. Not from fear. From something else. Guilt. Real guilt. The kind that doesn't go away when you justify it. The kind that stays because it's true. She pressed her hands against her face, exhaling slowly. Why did I say that? She knew the answer. Because it was easy. Because it got a laugh. Because it made her feel like she belonged in that moment. At his expense. Her throat tightened. All those times he showed up. All those things he did. And she reduced him to embarrassment. Emily stood up and walked into the kitchen. The note was still there. Unmoved. Unchanged. She picked it up again, reading it for what felt like the 100th time. You said you wanted a life without me in it. Her fingers trembled slightly. He didn't misunderstand her. He didn't overreact. He believed her. That was the worst part. She set the note down slowly, then reached for her phone. This time, she didn't hesitate. She tapped his name. Ring. Her heart pounded. Ring. Her grip tightened. Ring. Then, voicemail. Her chest dropped. But she didn't hang up. Not this time. She swallowed hard, her voice catching slightly as the beep sounded. Dad. Silence. Her throat tightened again. I don't know if you're listening, but... She paused, struggling to find words that didn't feel fake, didn't feel rehearsed. I messed up. The words felt small, too small. I shouldn't have said what I said. Her voice cracked slightly. I didn't think you'd hear it, but that doesn't make it okay. She wiped at her eyes quickly, frustrated. I don't need money right now. She stopped. That wasn't true, but it wasn't the point anymore. I just need to talk to you. Her voice softened. Please. She waited, even though she knew he wasn't there. Then slowly lowered the phone. The silence after the call felt different. Not empty, not cold. Heavy. Because now, she had said it. Not perfectly, not enough. But honestly. Emily sat down at the table, staring at her phone. Waiting. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Nothing. No call back. No message. No sign that he even heard it. She leaned back in her chair, her chest tightening again. This time, it wasn't panic. It was something worse. Uncertainty mixed with regret. Because apologies only matter if the other person is still there to hear them. And for the first time, Emily realized something she hadn't considered before. What if he wasn't just ignoring her? What if he had already moved on? The thought settled in slowly. And with it, a quiet, terrifying question. What if I don't get another chance? The next morning, Emily didn't check her phone right away. For the first time in days, she was afraid of what she might or might not see. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, replaying the voicemail in her head. Every word, every pause, every crack in her voice. I messed up. It sounded so small now, so incomplete. She let out a slow breath and finally reached for her phone. Unlocked it. Nothing. No missed calls. No messages. No response. Her chest tightened, but this time, she didn't panic. Because deep down, she had already expected it. You don't get to hurt someone like that, she whispered to herself, and then expect them to answer the first time you call. The truth sat heavy in her chest. This wasn't going to be fixed with one apology. If it could be fixed at all. She stood up slowly, her body feeling heavier than usual. Her reflection caught her eye in the mirror. She barely recognized herself. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair unstyled. The confidence she used to carry so effortlessly. Gone. For a moment, she just stood there, looking, processing. Then she turned away, because she had something more urgent to deal with. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she forced herself to look. Notice, eviction process will begin within 24 hours if payment is not received. Her stomach dropped. There it was. The deadline. Not a warning anymore. A consequence. She sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the message. Her mind raced again, but differently this time. Less denial. More clarity. She didn't have options anymore. No money. No credit. No support. And now, no time. Her fingers hovered over her contacts again. Scrolling. Names she used to rely on. People she thought would always be there. But now, every name felt like a dead end. Because she had already tried. And they had already said no. Her throat tightened. There was only one place left. And she had already reached out. With no answer. Emily leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. Her chest rose slowly, then fell. Okay, she whispered. If he wasn't answering, then she would go to him. Not call, not text. Show up. Because maybe, that was what this needed. Not words through a phone, but real presence. The same way he used to show up for her. Every time. No matter what. She stood up quickly, grabbing her keys. Her movements were sharper now, more certain. Not confident, but decided. She didn't even check her reflection again. Didn't fix her hair. Didn't care. For the first time in a long time, image didn't matter. Only truth. The drive felt longer than usual. Every red light stretched. Every second dragged. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary. Her thoughts ran ahead of her. What if he's not home? What if he doesn't open the door? What if he looks at me and feels nothing? That last thought hit the hardest. Because anger, she could handle. Disappointment, she could survive. But indifference? That meant she had already lost him. Emily pulled into his street slowly. The familiar houses, the quiet sidewalks. Everything looked exactly the same. But it didn't feel the same. Because she wasn't arriving as the daughter who had everything under control. She was arriving with nothing. She parked the car, but didn't get out right away. Her hand stayed on the wheel. Her breathing slowed. This was it. No more avoidance. No more delay. Just truth. She opened the door and stepped out. The air felt colder here. Sharper. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last. Until she reached the front door. The same door she had walked through 1,000 times. Without thinking. Without hesitation. Now, it felt different. Like she had to earn the right to knock. Her hand hovered in the air. Just inches away. Her heart pounded. And for the first time since all of this started, she didn't think about money, or rent, or her job. She thought about one thing. Please just be there. Her knuckles moved forward. And knocked. The knock sounded louder than she expected. Sharp. Final. Like there was no taking it back. Emily froze for a second after her knuckles hit the door. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it might shake through her chest. Silence. No footsteps. No movement inside. Her throat tightened. She knocked again. Softer this time. Less certain. Dad? Her voice came out quieter than she meant it to. Nothing. The silence stretched. Long enough for doubt to creep in. Maybe he wasn't home. Maybe he was working. Maybe he just didn't want to answer. That thought hit harder than anything else. She stepped back slightly, wrapping her arms around herself. The cold air seeped through her clothes, but she barely felt it. Please, she whispered, barely audible. Then, a sound. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. On the other side of the door. Emily's breath caught. Her body went still. The handle turned. And the door opened. Daniel stood there. He looked the same. Same posture. Same steady presence. Same worn jacket. But something about him felt different. Not colder. Not angry. Just distant. His eyes met hers. And for a second, neither of them spoke. Emily's chest tightened instantly. Because she had imagined this moment 100 times in the car. But nothing prepared her for this. The lack of reaction. No anger. No relief. No warmth. Just calm. Hi. Her voice felt small. Daniel didn't respond right away. He just looked at her, taking her in. Her messy hair. Her tired eyes. The way she stood there. Not like the confident version of herself she used to be. But like someone who had nowhere else to go. What do you want? His voice was even. Flat. No edge. No softness. Just neutral. Emily swallowed. Her throat dry. I just wanted to talk. A pause. Daniel's hand stayed on the door, not opening it wider, not closing it. About what? The question was simple, but it felt heavy. Because for the first time, she didn't have a polished answer. No script. No confidence. Just truth. I messed up. The words came out slower now, more real than they were on the voicemail. I shouldn't have said what I said. Daniel's expression didn't change. Emily's eyes dropped briefly, then lifted again. I didn't think you'd hear it. She shook her head slightly. That doesn't matter. It was still wrong. Silence. The air between them felt thick. I've been trying to call you, she continued. Her voice cracked slightly. You didn't answer. I know. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just acknowledgement. Emily's chest tightened again. I don't expect things to go back to normal. She said it carefully, slowly. But I needed to see you. Daniel studied her for a moment. Long enough that she started to feel exposed. You saw me, he said simply. The words landed harder than they should have. Because they weren't cruel. They were factual. Emily blinked. Her eyes stung slightly. That's not what I meant. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he shifted his weight slightly, still standing in the doorway, still not inviting her in. You said you didn't want me in your life, he said. Not accusing, not emotional, just stating it. Emily shook her head quickly. I didn't mean it like that. But you said it. That stopped her. Because he wasn't wrong. She opened her mouth again, then closed it. Her shoulders dropped slightly. I was being stupid, she said quietly. Daniel held her gaze. No. The word surprised her. You were being honest. That hit deeper. Because it stripped away every excuse. Every defense. Emily's chest tightened. I don't feel that way now, she said quickly. Daniel nodded once. Okay. Just okay. No relief. No shift. Emily felt panic flicker under her ribs. I've been struggling, she added, her voice softer now. I lost access to everything. My rent, my cards, She stopped herself. Because she heard it. How it sounded. Like she was circling back to the same thing. Money. Daniel noticed too. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes closed slightly. I didn't come here for that, Emily said quickly. Another pause. Longer this time. Daniel looked at her. Really looked. Then finally, he stepped back. Just a little. Not fully. Just enough space for a decision. If you came here to talk, he said calmly, then talk. No warmth. No reassurance. But not rejection either. Just a door. Half open. And for the first time since everything began, Emily realized something. Getting him back wasn't going to be about one apology. It was going to take something much harder. Becoming someone he could respect again. Emily stepped inside slowly. Not like she used to, walking in without knocking, dropping her bag, filling the space with noise. Now, every step felt measured, earned. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Daniel didn't say anything. He just walked past her into the living room. The same quiet space she grew up in. Nothing had changed. The same couch. The same chair. The same small table with its worn edges. Except, something was missing. Emily's eyes moved across the room, then stopped. The photo. The one that used to sit on the counter. Her at 8 years old. Missing tooth. Big smile. Gone. Her chest tightened. Daniel sat down in his chair, leaning back slightly, his hands resting calmly on the armrests. He looked at her, waiting. No rush. No guidance. Just silence. Emily stayed standing for a moment, then slowly sat down across from him. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers intertwined tightly. The silence stretched. This was the part she hadn't planned. Because saying, I'm sorry was easy. Explaining why, that was harder. I've been thinking about what I said. She started quietly. Daniel didn't interrupt. I kept trying to tell myself it wasn't a big deal. She let out a small breath. That it was just a joke. Just something I said in the moment. She shook her head slightly. But it wasn't. Daniel's gaze stayed steady. It was how I really saw you. The honesty sat heavy in the room. Emily swallowed, her throat dry. I thought you were embarrassing, she said. The words felt harsh, but she didn't stop. I thought the way you dressed, the way you talked, the kind of work you did. She looked down briefly. I thought it made me look smaller. Silence. Daniel's expression didn't change, but he didn't look away either. Emily's voice softened. So I tried to distance myself from you. Her hands tightened slightly. I didn't realize that everything I was standing on, she glanced around the room, came from you. That landed differently. Because now, it wasn't abstract. It was visible. The house, the stability, the foundation. Everything she had built her life on started here. I kept thinking I earned everything on my own, she admitted. And I didn't. Her voice cracked slightly. I just inherited it. Daniel shifted slightly in his chair, not uncomfortable, just adjusting. Emily looked up at him again, her eyes more steady now. When everything disappeared, she continued, I thought the problem was the money. She shook her head again. But it wasn't. A pause. The problem was. She hesitated, then finished it. I didn't know who I was without it. That was the truth. Not the bills, not the rent, but the emptiness underneath it all. Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. Go on. 2 words. Simple. But it meant he was listening. Really listening. Emily took a breath. I spent years trying to be someone else, she said. Someone who fit into a world that didn't look like yours. Her eyes flickered briefly. And I thought that meant leaving you behind. Another pause. But all it did. Her voice softened again. Was leave me with nothing real. The room fell quiet again. But this silence felt different. Not empty. Honest. Emily's hands loosened slightly in her lap. I don't expect you to fix anything, she said. I'm not here for money. This time, it was true. She swallowed. I don't want to lose you. That was the first time she said it clearly. Not implied. Not hidden. Said. Daniel watched her for a long moment. Long enough that her chest tightened again. Waiting. Then finally, he spoke. You already did. The words were calm. Not cruel. But they landed heavy. Emily's breath caught slightly. I know, she whispered. And that's on me. No defense. No excuses. Just acceptance. Daniel leaned back in his chair again, studying her. Not as a child, but as someone changing. You spent a long time deciding who I was to you, he said. Emily nodded slowly. I know. And now? The question hung in the air. Simple. But everything depended on it. Emily didn't answer right away. Because this time, she wasn't guessing. She was choosing. You're the person who never left, she said finally, her voice steady. The one who built everything I stood on. A pause. And the one I pushed away because I didn't understand what that meant. Silence. Daniel held her gaze. Not soft. Not cold. Evaluating. And for the first time, there was something else there. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something close. Respect. Small. But real. And that was where everything had to start. Daniel didn't respond right away. He sat there, watching her, not the way he used to, with quiet pride, but with something more careful now. Measured. Like a man who had learned what it cost to give too much, too freely. The room stayed still. No background noise. No distractions. Just truth sitting between them. Emily didn't look away this time. She let the silence exist. Didn't rush to fill it. Didn't try to fix it. Because for the first time, she understood that this moment wasn't about convincing him. It was about proving, over time, that she was no longer the same person who stood in that hallway laughing. Daniel leaned back slightly in his chair. His eyes didn't soften, but they didn't harden either. You don't lose someone in a single sentence, he said finally. His voice was steady, controlled. Emily nodded. I know. You lose them slowly. He continued, piece by piece. Every time you decide they matter a little less. That hit deeper than anything else he had said, because it wasn't about that night anymore. It was about everything before it. Emily swallowed, her throat tight. I did that, she admitted quietly. Daniel studied her for a moment longer. Then he stood up. The movement caught her off guard. He walked past her, into the kitchen, opened a cabinet. Emily stayed seated, unsure what it meant. A few seconds later, he came back with 2 glasses, set one down in front of her, filled them both with water. It was a small gesture, simple, ordinary, but it meant something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but not rejection either. Emily wrapped her hands around the glass. It was cool, grounding. Daniel sat back down across from her. If you're here to rebuild something, he said, then understand this. His tone didn't rise, didn't sharpen. It's not going to be what it was. Emily nodded slowly. I don't expect it to be. You don't get to go back. He continued. You move forward. Another pause. And forward looks different now. Emily took a small breath. I'm okay with that, she said. And this time, she meant it. Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on his knees again. No more money, he said. The words were clear. Final. Emily didn't hesitate. Okay. No argument. No hesitation. Because she already understood. No more fixing things behind the scenes. He added. Another nod. Okay. He held her gaze. You build your own life. A longer pause. And if you fail, Emily didn't look away. I'll deal with it, she said quietly. Daniel watched her closely. Searching. Not for perfection, but for truth. And this time, he found it. He leaned back again, exhaling slowly. This isn't about punishment, he said. I know. It's about reality. Emily nodded. I understand that now. The room fell quiet again. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was stable. Real. Emily looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up. Can I come back sometimes? She asked. Not move in. Not fix everything. Just be there. Daniel didn't answer immediately, because this wasn't a small question. It was about boundaries, trust, time. Finally, he gave a small nod. You can visit. Not come home. Not yet. But it was something. Emily let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Thank you. She stood up slowly. Not rushed. Not desperate. Just steady. Because she knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something harder. Something real. She walked toward the door, then paused. Dad. The word felt different now. Heavier. More honest. Daniel looked at her. I'm going to figure this out, she said. A small nod. I know. Not pride. Not praise. But belief. And that mattered more. Emily opened the door and stepped outside. The air hit her again. Cold, sharp, real. But this time, she didn't feel lost. She felt grounded. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't standing on something someone else built. She was standing on nothing. And that meant, whatever came next, would finally be hers. Inside, Daniel sat alone in the quiet room. He looked toward the empty space where that old photo used to be. Then, slowly, he stood up, walked to the counter, picked it up from the drawer, and placed it back. Not as it was before, but as a reminder that some things don't disappear. They just change. And sometimes, the only way to rebuild something real is to let the illusion fall apart first.